Hello, welcome to my video on starting up my filtration system. So in this video I wanted to talk about how the pond is getting on. I wanted to sort of in-depth answer some of the questions that I received on the previous video and sort of talk about how it's worked out for me. So I'll start off this video by talking about the parameters currently of this pond. So we've got 3 milligrams per litre of ammonia in here, which is quite high, yeah, it's quite high, but we're getting there. The nitrite is coming up, I think that's 0.8 milligrams per litre, and the nitrate is 3 milligrams per litre. So the nitrite level tells me that the ammonia is starting to be processed, and in the next few weeks I imagine the ammonia level will actually start to drop, as at the moment I'm pretty sure the filter is processing the same amount of ammonia that the fish are creating, so it's staying quite level. But at some point it will be able to do more than that, and it will actually start to bring the ammonia level down. But then the nitrite level will come up, and that's just something I'll be keeping an eye on, making sure it's safe, and that's why the fish are so happy, because they're in the water. The pH level, I actually managed to get it to drop. What I actually have done is, you can tell, I've turned the air off going into the pond. I didn't expect this to make much difference. I've seen it work on ponds that have got plants in them, a lot of plant life and sort of things like that, where they've needed to have the air off at specific times. But I didn't think it worked for this one, but due to the amount of fish and the lack of air actually getting to the pond, for example, when that lid is on here, it's actually quite sealed, so there's only 2 inches of air, and that won't last long. And then the filtration system is pretty much sealed as well, so when the air stone isn't on, then there's no really other air source to the pond, which is quite worrying to know what the oxygen levels might drop to, but I don't think they'll be that bad. It's on, the air stone is on during the night time, and that's why my pH is about 7.2 in the morning and about 7 in an afternoon and a night. And yeah, that's fine for that ammonia level. They'll be able to have a lot more ammonia in there than what they're currently at, and that's, you know, why they're so happy. So what have I actually done to this pond? Well, apart from checking the parameters, and I've been putting in about 40 litres of water a day just to compensate for what the drum filter uses, I haven't actually done very much. Now, I can do this because this is sort of the third type of this pond that I've started up with the same media and the same filtration system, and I sort of know how it's going to react. However, as you saw in my previous video, it reacted slightly differently with the pH levels at the beginning. That were obviously due to the excess air in the thing, because the other ponds have been a bit deeper or not had quite as powerful air pump on them and that sort of thing. And I think that's what the difference has been with this pond. But if you've got another type of filtration, such as a plastic media in your filter, like a Nexus, or even this filter that I've got is supposed to have K1 in it rather than Cyprax in it, I don't really think you could start it up like this, where you're chucking a load of fish in it and just get on with it. It's not really practical for some filtration types, but for sintered glass media I find it to be a good way of doing it. So kick-starting it really gets it going, and eventually in the next few weeks I think this water quality will be absolutely amazing, and I'll be doing another video on it then. But why is it that this pond actually started up and it's starting to process ammonia, nitrite and nitrate, even though this pond is clean? There's no outside influence except for the fish. The only thing in this pond is the fish. The water was fresh tap water, obviously dechlorinated, but fresh. The pond clean, the filter and the filter media clean. So why is it that it's actually able to develop the bacteria? Well, the bacteria actually comes from the fish themselves. So the fish actually produce a small amount of bacteria, and that bacteria that the fish produce can only cope with a small percentage of the ammonia that they produce, but the actual filter is what needs to hold that bacteria. So what I've done basically is created the perfect environment to keep that bacteria alive in the filter. So the fish will produce a small amount of bacteria. That bacteria will move into the filtration system and be able to process a small amount of ammonia. Only a small percentage of what the fish actually create at this point. So then the fish will then create more bacteria, which will then also move into the filtration system, and so on until the filtration system gets to the point where it is now, where it's pretty much processing all the ammonia that the fish are producing, but obviously not bringing it down. It's just staying level at that 3 milligrams per litre. But eventually it'll then start to get more than necessary, and it will bring that 3 milligrams per litre down. And then also it'll start to work on the other things, nitrite and nitrate. So that's how it actually works. There is a lot of conflicting information on this on the internet, and to understand it properly you need to be like a doctor in this sort of thing. But I sort of just understand it to the point where it is necessary, that it's how a filter starts up, and it's sort of how I've managed this pond with that many fish in it, and sort of all in one go, is because they will all produce that bacteria and go into the filtration system. Whereas if I'd have put a smaller amount of fish in it, the only difference would have been is a smaller amount of bacteria created, took longer to develop the filtration system, and it would have ended up being exactly the same sort of result even with a small amount of fish in it. And that's because the filter itself is so good. But you know, obviously there'd be a slight dilution effect with the amount of water, but apart from that, the amount of fish have been quite an advantage to this system starting. So there you go, that's my reasoning behind doing things. So why did I not put in mature media from my main pond? Well, I didn't put in mature media from my main pond for a few specific reasons. It sort of introduces another point of sort of disease to the pond, so it brings in another unknown as such. So the fish themselves are an unknown because I don't exactly know what parasites they may have come with or may not have come with. So if I put these fish in this pond like I've done now and they get fluke or anything like that, any parasite that I know of at the minute, they don't appear to have anything, but we'll see when the water quality gets better, and I'll obviously be testing that. But there is always some sort of parasite in your pond. And my main pond is a 9,000 gallon pond, and in a 9,000 gallon pond there'll be a lot of muck in that pond and a lot of things for small parasites to eat, and there'll be a lot of parasites in there. I'll show you in the next video what kind of parasites actually live in your pond that you don't realise and don't actually affect your fish. But some of them will live in there, like trichodema. Trichodema will live in your pond all the time. You'll never be able to get rid of it. Every pond will probably have trichodema in it at some point. But trichodema will live in the muck. Trichodema will eat the muck in your pond and be quite happy with that. It don't care about fish, but if it gets that much trichodema in your pond, it will then, to the point where it can't eat the muck anymore, it will then start eating your fish, and that's where the problem comes from. But if I filter from a 9,000 gallon pond that's full of muck and got plenty of stuff in it from that pond for that parasite to eat, and put it in this pond that's clean as a bell, then that parasite might come off and start eating the fish, and that's not a good thing. Obviously it's not. That's a real easy way to end up with parasites and a bad infection, that sort of thing. It's not saying that I will ever get a problem with my main pond, because obviously my main pond's doing really well at the minute. It just might be caused by moving it into this pond. It's just sort of a thing where I might then say these fish have got whatever parasite and think, well, that's the dealer's fault. Obviously they came with it. My main pond fish are fine. Well, the main pond fish might be fine just because of the pond itself, and you know, I might have just killed most of these fish doing that. And I say this from experience. I actually did this a few years back. I was making some changes to one of my old ponds, and I put all the fish in a vat, and I thought, well, what I'll do is I'll put the filter from that pond that I'm changing onto the vat. And what happened is I took that filtration system off of a 10,000 litre pond and put it on a 2,000 litre pond that was clean. And what I found is that because of the actual drop in volume of water that filter could process, it killed off most of the filtration system. So, because it weren't needed, the filter just died to compensate for the shrinkage of this pond. Now, and the fact that the pond was clean, it didn't need as much filtration and sort of that. So the filter died, which then caused a huge ammonia spike, and I had a lot of problems with ammonia and that sort of thing. And then on top of that, a parasite actually came out of the woodwork and it started attacking the koi, which caused sort of an ingress point for bacteria into the fish. And because that filter then died and it were supposed to be coping with a lot bigger pond, the fish actually got huge infections from the bacteria that were being released because of that filter, and I was struggling even with antibiotics to cope with the infection in the fish, which was a huge problem. About half of the fish in that vat died purely because I put a much bigger, much more mature filter on a small tank that was clean and not really in need of a mature filter like that. And that was my mistake, and I will never really do that again, because it's hard to sort of manage that sort of thing, and unnecessary. I mean, I got new pond syndrome anyway, so if I'd have totally cleaned that filter and knocked it right out and put it on that pond, I'd have had a bit of new pond syndrome. I'd have not had any bacterial issues or infections. The new pond syndrome itself had actually solved any problems that I could have had with infection and bacteria and that, because the ammonia level had sort of itself cleaned the water of that sort of thing. And so that was my mistake, and I will never do that again. And that's why this pond has been started up completely separate of any other pond, because trying to manage the two ponds would have just brought, you know, questions to where any problems might have come from later on. And this fish is doing really fine at the minute, but there we go. So that is an update on my pond, and hopefully that answers any questions. But if you do have any questions, please comment them below. I like reading your comments and that sort of thing, and I'll try to answer back as soon as I can. And I'll just drop them some food in. There we go. I love the food, the greedy little fish at the minute. So there you go. Thank you for watching this video. I shall see you in the next video. And if you liked it, please like it and subscribe for more. See you later.